Hello everyone, my name is RagingRaptor and I welcome you to a new World of Tanks video, and today I am delighted to present the Q&A or dash interview Circon did with Andrey Biletskiy, the World of Tanks Creative Director. And well, I guess let's just jump right in because there's a lot to talk about. Well, again, 15th of May the interview was held. I did some summarizing here on the presentation, but the bulk of the summarization did Stefan, the German community manager. But first things first, the source material. Again, please check out the whole video if you have the time. It goes for around 2.5 hours. It's very interesting. Circon did an amazing job. He leaves you all the bullet points down below, so you can just click on when you want to listen to what he was saying or what the question was. So it has just some timestamps in it. I'm leaving a link to the video in the description as well as in the pinned comment. And again, my video right here is just a summarization of the most important informations and also giving my personal opinion on all the different things which were being talked about. Obviously, a little note of thanks, big one going obviously to Circon for letting me use the informations and for also having a quick look over all the bullet points I did right here. And obviously Stefan for making basically a protocol of all the things right here. And he's a German community manager, which is amazing. And obviously I also want to say my thanks to Bleeding, which did a German translation in the forums. As you might know, my channel is duolingual, or I do two YouTube channels, one being RagingRaptor DE, which stands for Deutschland, for Germany, because I'm doing most of my stuff, all of my stuff basically in German as well. So, table of content, what do we have today? We're going to have a quick introduction of Biletskiy. We have the wheeled vehicle changes, patched to patch balance, new balance, Arty, British light tanks, frontline, matchmaking, PvE and events, the Soaprocks, and at the end, Crew 2.0. So now let's start with the introduction of Andrey Biletskiy, because that was actually very interesting. He's no stranger to game development. He did work on Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Black Flag, where mainly he was focused on the naval combat. This is also why he used to work obviously at Ubisoft in Montreal, and this is also why he has very good English. Like for a Russian-speaking person, his English obviously was accent heavy like mine is, but he did an amazing job and it was a pleasure to listen to him. To him as a player, he has no maps banned, he doesn't use an anonymizer because he is an average player, he plays all game modes, he watches streams and videos but mostly from CIS region, he did watch QB for a while and is still subbed to him, and he follows also other games like Total Warhammer 2. So yeah, now the biggest topic probably, or one of the biggest topic, was the wheeled vehicle changes. And most importantly, it is a fact, EBR 105 is the most effective tier 10 light tank right now. You don't see or hardly see anything else in Clan Wars. In competitive gaming, you only really see EBR 105s. So, Wargaming decided to give us two options for nerfing, or their internal thoughts right now. And this is first one being to increase the effect of broken wheels, aka making them even come to a full stop, or just decreasing the mobility much more when one of your wheels are damaged. Another point could be limiting their damage potential and shots on the move. I personally think one of the biggest, most frustrating things about the wheeled vehicles is that they are so accurate on the move and have advanced auto aim. And I personally have to say, I'd actually like to see the second one getting changed, you know? I don't mind when those tanks have incredible huge gun dispersion, but have a quick aim time, because that would be actually very interesting gameplay in my opinion. You either do the active scouting, or you decide to just do a little bit of stop and go, stop, quickly aim in, make your shot, and gotta go fast. That would, in my opinion, be a pretty decent way of trying to rebalance those vehicles. Nevertheless, they said one option at a time will be tested, and they will see when the first, for example, the increased effect of broken wheels will be good and make the tanks much more balanced, then they will say, you know what, we are not going to nerf or change their damage potential. If the nerfs to the wheels, for example, is not enough, then the second option will be looked at more closely. In general, those changes have the highest priority right now, meaning there is the most amount of work going in there. So Maybe Wargaming might even do those changes, heck, right in 1.9.1. It could be the second iteration is always there to introduce new features, so who knows? And, well, the reason for implementation of wheeled vehicles is actually very interesting. They said normal scouts became too much of pocket mediums, and EBRs were meant to be pure active scouts, which makes sense, but then again you see what actually happened. They were just too good as scouts. On another hand, you could in theory try to buff normal scouts, for example giving them better camo breaking, but that's a whole other can of worms. Talking about wheeled vehicles, they did say they are looking into British wheeled medium tanks. This is very, very interesting because Zircon at the livestream did talk about, hey, what about German tanks like the Puma, or for example a half-track like the Sonderkraftfahrzeug 257 with 88cm gun. 8.8 centimeter gun, for example. But they said the most likely next wheeled tanks could be British wheeled medium tanks. I did put here a picture of the Roycat, which is meant to be a lightly armored vehicle, so I'm not sure if this would count as a medium tank. In general, I want to point out, just because they are wheeled tanks doesn't mean they will be so strong like the normal wheelie boys. I think you could in theory very much balance tanks like the Radkampfpanzerwagen 90 or tanks like the Centauro very, very well in the game and make them mobile TDs maybe, or medium tanks, and so on and so forth. However, there are plans. They are not for 2020. Right now, they are making the roadmap for 2021. So maybe they will come as a plan for 2021. I would be looking forward to. I don't see the concept as a whole as bad. Just the EBRs are a little bit overtuned. Now, let's talk about the patch-to-patch balance. Again, very interesting. They are working on an iteration-like cycle when it comes to balancing. And a normal iteration is around 6 months. Again, if you are coming from an engineering field, iterations are something you all the time do. You test, you see, you analyze, you know, oh, I have to do this again, you test again. And you change something, you test again. You change, test again until you're happy. So Wargaming is very much doing the same thing, just at a longer process. Because they do not want to base their decisions on early player data. Because usually, for example, if a new tank line comes out, there are some whales which are just pumping in free XP to get those tanks immediately. But usually the first tankers to get those tanks being legitimately or just grinding them are good players. Look at people like Dakils or back in the days of ST2. Look at me, even though I'm not as good as Ducky or Skillful L2. I was one of the guys which actually got the Progetto t-shirt for being one of the first ones to get the tier 10 tank. And I did not free XP it, I just used free XP to skip stock grinds. But yeah, I understand this reasoning that early adopters or early player data will not be useful for making tanks balanced. We're going to that in just a second. They usually say early players overperform. And this is why after 6 months, the interest on the tank is usually died down, and the people which wanted the tank have it. And people which didn't want the tank, they don't give a poop about it. And this is why after 6 months, there is a more accurate picture. I do have to point out though that on new tanks, this makes sense to me personally. On rebalanced tanks, like for example an E5, a Kranwagen, and so on and so on and so on, I think this is wrong because, for example, an E5 is already everywhere in the game, or a lot of people already have the E5, from the potato to the great players. The same goes for an E100, an IS4, etc., etc., etc. So I hope that Wargaming is doing the patch-to-patch balance a little bit differently for rebalancing tanks, which they did. We saw low tiers did got a quick change in update 1.9.1. But yeah, it can take longer than 6 months as balance isn't planned patch to patch, and this is in my opinion a little bit of an issue. Every single patch something should be balanced, please Wargaming. Don't shy from doing balancing. Balancing needs a good team, balancing needs a lot of effort, but it is well worth it to make a game a lot more enjoyable for everybody. They say individual balance right now has, however, the higher priority. This is why we see the changes for E100 being planned, the IS-4 being planned, the E5 line being planned, the low tier changes for Covenanter, Crusader, Cavalier, A20, BT7, and they also are saying Chinese medium could be there as well. They want to change the Chinese mediums. My proposal would still be, hey, give them atrocious gun handling but very quick aim time. That would make them very unique in the sense of a medium tank, and it would still make them differently from everything else we are already having. But that's just my personal proposal. New balance and production. Well, the NB is not scrapped. It is in a research state. The premium shell test was successful. The HE changes failed, thank God. And Arty changes are semi-final or a semi-fail, which is okay. I did like the changes to artillery except for the AP rounds, but everything else around it was, in my opinion, a good step into the right direction. I'm going to talk about Arty in the separate topic. Yeah, however, the changes to Arty are linked to the new balance, which is, in my opinion, a little bit sad because you could roll out some Arty changes straight away and I think they wouldn't be too bad. The idea of new balance is, however, that in the game, every single player has several tools at his disposal and he should have the right one every single time. And this should apply to all classes. So, for example, Wargaming wants to have a world of tanks where, for example, you as a medium tank at the early game, when you have to snipe, you can use your APCR rounds to be a better sniper. As soon as you start to have more tougher opponents in front of you, you have to have another round, which, for example, lacks speed and lacks alpha damage, but has the woomph to be better at penetrating. And obviously, they also want to have the HE rounds, which is probably there to detract people and most likely to just kill low HP targets. When we were talking about tables, this is what wargaming means, and this right here is my personal interpretation of it. There is a production table, and everything which is on this table, on this imaginary table, will almost 100% come to live servers. For example, right now we have on the production table the 1.9.1 customization, the adjustable styles. This is basically confirmed to come onto the live server. The pre-production table still needs research and tweaks. I see this as CT, but it could also be super test and sandbox as well. But usually in this pre-production table, there are things, for example, I could say, let's be honest, the PvE mode could be still in a pre-production table. They did some research, they did some tests, they still need to tweak it. The same goes, for example, back in the days with Frontline or the New Balance. But yeah, New Balance actually is on the concept table, which is just ideas and experiments. AKA or EG, super test and sandbox. So yeah, and they saying New Balance is never left the concept table, meaning it's still in the very, very early stages of development. Talking about New Balance in production, there was a big talk about the T6 medium with its 105mm howitzer gun, which is historical, and this is why they introduced it. However, Zircon and many other content creators said it, Ouija, that thing looks broken as hell. It's literally an M4 Sherman on tier 4. And they said they wanted to introduce it like that because this is what the American army wanted to have. And this is why they said, hey, let's make it historical. However, they are saying nerfs will be possible for this tank. They're also saying reconstruction is hard sometimes because sometimes only specifications are given. This is important to point out because just giving specifications doesn't mean that the tank could have worked. I think the best example would be the LT432. Maybe the specifications were half 160mm turret, half 7 degrees of gun depression, half this and this mobility with this and this and armor. All those specifications on a paper, they look swell and the army would like it. However, many people already pointed out that there is in no way space for the gun breach in the turret when this tank has 7 degrees of gun depression. So yeah, sometimes it's not only hard for them to reconstruct from just specifications, sometimes, I don't know, an actual engineer would be needed to try and model the whole tank with the internal modules to see if it actually would even work. Because I'm very certain the LT432 does not work how Wargaming has it planned. Also, low number of shells in your tank is tied to historical accuracy. For example, the Sturer Emil only had 15 rounds in its tank. They are, however, say if it's unplayable, they will buff it. This is also the reason why Tier 5 and Tier 6 premiums didn't receive more rounds, because they said, you know what, it's still playable, let's go on with it. Talking about artillery, and this is a sore thumb for me, so let's have a look. They are saying Arty is meant to be crowd control. Most effective against groups of tanks or counter hold down tanks like Chief Turret and the IS-7. Well, okay, I understand that artillery is crowd control and is effective against groups. But, and here comes the big but, why exactly are you, well then, promoting to shoot at, for example, targets with very little armor? Every single time when, for example, a Guerrilla 15 is getting spotted, artillery is not going to shoot onto the major bulk of people. It's going to shoot at this paper target because must see big damage numbers. This is sad. Again, artillery is supposed to be crowd control and a support tank class. So why exactly is there such a big focus on artillery doing a lot of damage? The Killser actually showed it very, very well during his CGZ Gunmark grind. He did focus on splashing the people, because he's a smart player. And I'm sorry for calling out stupid players, but just trying to go for damage is not the preferable way for artillery. So in my opinion, why not introduce the changes you had for HE shells? Why not remove pen on artillery shells? Make the damage more predictable and take away the RNG factor of getting penned for basically being unlucky. Best example would be the Badger. I was free marking it, I got one shot at 100-0 because I burned by a T92. Did 0 damage, 0 spot. Congratulations, was a fun game. Because he pens my 17mm roof. Is this a balancing strategy? I don't think so, because nobody really fishes for those pen hits, especially on a highly armored target like a Badger. So again, make damage more predictable for artillery and remove, well, penetration. Because then artillery will maybe stop shooting on damage and rather try to shoot on groups and be the support crowd control target. Again, personal opinion, write down in the comment section below what you think how to maybe balance artillery. Because it is a hard topic, but a very interesting one. They say, however, Arty needs to be scary to be effective, so maybe this immediately kills my statement. Which would be sad, but then again, it's a support class. It is, if it does consistent damage, that's still scary. But if it's just doing random lol pen hits, let's be honest, go on Environ's YouTube channel and just look at some Arty versus streamer highlights, and you will see fun and engaging when you suddenly receive a 1000 damage shot by being unlucky, you know. However, Wargaming is acknowledging the Tier 5 and Tier 6 SPGs are overperforming, and especially their penetration values are very, very strong, and they may or may not have to revamp them. Now, let's talk about the British light tanks. Good old chap. Those tanks, during the Q&A, it was so funny how he was arguing it. It was actually comically. Sorry, Andrey, I have high respect from you. You look like a very interesting and smart person, but here you just failed me. You really just made me go like, what the hell are you talking about? So, apparently the Manticore has the highest DPG of all lights. I looked up on WoT Live, EU and Russian server stats, and this was not the case. Maybe they have other stats, maybe WoT Live is inaccurate. However, this is one reason why they do not want to give the Manticore more rounds. Still kind of weird. They say more ammo could actually lead to a nerf of the Manticore. It's weird, let's be honest. The British light tanks are mostly played by very skilled players, which is more or... I can't really judge it, but I can see where they are coming from. It is a challenge for a very skilled player to mark a trash tank. This is why you see people marking KB13 with derp gun. Hence, people are marking the Comet with the derp gun, the Cromwell with the derp gun, E50 with the long 88. Heck, Badger, Manticore even, you know. It makes sense because it's a challenge for very skilled players. And in general, they need skill to be used properly. But they are the least popular LTs. Gs are being like 5 times less popular than the T54 lightweight. And like, yeah, come on. And they're saying there's not enough data to judge for sure if they're OP, balanced, or underperforming. However, they do admit the British light tanks were already dead on arrival. Like, they knew this light tank line will not be popular. Again, you have the tools to see if they're underpowered. Make them a little bit stronger. Try to make them appealing. If they're too strong, then nerf them again. Sometimes I have the feeling wargaming is a little bit lazy when it comes to balancing. They said in several occasions already that they don't want to overbuff a tank to then nerf it again. They don't want to constantly buff or change or balance. That is being said on other Q&As as well, which is a little bit sad because this is not how an online massive multiplayer game works. In general, I think British light tanks, you could buff them by, for example, giving 420 alpha to the tier 10 light, for maybe giving it a snappier gun, or maybe give it hash as penetration at least, just to make those tanks at least stay in line with the British hash gimmick. But yeah. Talking about frontline, the current format is more punishing, however it is easier to get one tank. They did acknowledge, however, that they might give us a chance to get missed tokens, which is okay because, again, even dedicated players are saying 1 tank is easy, 2 should be only for dedicated players. Saying that just for dedicated players is a little bit bogus. Let's for example say somebody which loves World of Tanks suddenly contracts corona. He has to go to the hospital. Luckily enough, he survives it, but he couldn't play the frontline season. Now he's boned. Even though he loves the game, he plays it a lot, he spends a lot of money, and suddenly has to do it. Or, for example, maybe he is somebody which works in healthcare. He loves the game, and yet he still has to do so much work because of the current crisis, so he couldn't get the tank. That's kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword. I understand it's for dedicated players, but it kind of hurts people which have new working schedules, which maybe even contract the virus and can't play for themselves. It's kind of a a gut punch. There we go. My goodness gracious, what was that? Yeah. However, interestingly enough, the reason for tier 9 reward is that if, for example, tier 8 is overpopulated. So if they introduce a tier 8 tank which is OP, it will dominate frontline and skirmish. If it's underpowered, people will be insulted. And they say tier 9 is a very comfortable tier to play in, and I have to say, this is correct. Because actually it has the best matchmaking in the game. +1, -2. Yeah. Oh, perfect! Let's talk about matchmaking! What a segue! +-1 matchmaking could happen. However, they are saying Verity could suffer. And it really did feel like during the Q&A that Biletskiy was a little bit dodging the question. Again, saying things like, again, it will get more boring, there will be more longer queue times, la-di-da-di-da. But I think the most stupidest answer, which I can relate to, because it makes sense psychologically wise, is just so stupid and annoying. +-2 matchmaking gives below average players an easier power moment. This is what he said. Like, I understand that people want to feel strong. Again, if you are a top tier tank, for example, in the 279, you can wreck faces with. I have a replay where the enemy 279 did 9k damage and I did my IS-7 almost 8k damage. Just recently I did 8k in the AMX M4 because it was top tier. Sure, it is easy to boss around tier 8 tanks, but the issue is, you are basically giving one person a good game while you screw over 6 other people. Or maybe even 12 if you count your team as well. And I understand that because you are planting frustration into the low tier tanks, but when you will be once top tier, your serotonin is like exploding in your head and you're getting this addictive feeling. Like a lot of people which are playing online games are most likely used to having more serotonin levels because they want to get this quick punch or this quick spike in serotonin. I'm actually somebody which has this issue as myself. I often procrastinate learning because, let's be honest, doing a video is more fun. Even though, in the long run, studies would help me a lot more. However, I think just giving this as the argument that +-2 matchmaking is better is just plain stupid in my opinion. Hey, why not make PvE mode something where below average players can have a power moment? Hey, let's slaughter bots. That's fun. That's a challenge. Could be challenging, but it could be easy, you know? Could be easy for the people. For worst player to have a power moment, and it wouldn't screw over other PvP players. The current matchmaking is adapting to the queue, and they are saying a 10% longer queue time would be a lot and have a big impact. Which is like 10% on 30 seconds is 3 seconds. That's not a long. 6 seconds on a 1 minute. That's not a lot either, you know? I don't know. Interesting, grand pedals were introduced to remove tier 10 tanks from the queue. Which is actually a very, very interesting point to take and to give. Make grand battles more unique. Not more unique, but more rewarding for play. Maybe give them more bonds, more credits when you are in there. Because then actually more people might play grand battles. It's a good idea to remove tier 10 tanks out of the queue to make tier 8s more sufferable again. But yeah, they are saying +-1 matchmaking would lead to more same tier battles, and this is a negative would outweigh the positive points. These are just hypotheses, Andrey. Please try it. Give us 1 week, 2 weeks of +-1 matchmaking. We have EU free now. Use it as a test platform. Just try it out. As we already talked before. Have an hypothesis, test it, and after testing you see, analyze it, and then do the whole step again. Iteration. Do your 6-month thingy. Iterate, please. There might be a possible to limit 279, or is it possible to limit 279E and the Chieftain in tier 10 only games? They're saying they are discussing it for random, not only for random battles, but also the competitive modes. I think the competitive modes are much more important than random battles. They do have a real-life example, which is the T22 Medium, which used to be incredibly strong, and now it was nerfed to oblivion, and nobody really plays it anymore. Again, you could rebuff it, just saying. There will be compromises between the people having a tank and not having a tank. And they're saying excluding them from ranked would only help for this game mode, and it's not an universal solution. This makes sense. Obviously, it's only for ranked. But again, competitive game modes, everybody should have the same playing field. So why give people which play the game longer or play Clan Wars, for example, give them the opportunity to ruffle stomp in much stronger tanks than other people? For example, the EBR change was already very needed and was a lot better than what we had before, to be honest. Also, apparently, matchmaking maintenance is expensive and consumes a lot of manpower. I don't know what to say to this. Talking about PvE and events. PvE is mostly will be just an event. Maybe later, if it will explode, people will see this as a separate game mode and they will introduce it as a separate game mode. If they get better with PvE. They said they are PvP games. They are PvP. They are a PvP game. And they have very little experience with PvE. And you know that. You felt that. Let's be honest. They don't want to make events give credits because this could, in theory, impact the game economy quite a lot. I don't know. I would have said, come on, give us just the amount of points you get times 10 as credits. So when you, for example, were on Berlin and you had a 2,000 point game, you would get 20,000 credits. I don't know if this would screw up with the in-game economy too much. Yeah, I don't know. Me as a player, for playing a doo-doo mode, I would have appreciated a little bit of credits. The idea say, however, events are often used to test crazy things. I have a bad feeling about this. Will we get the new... Do we get incendiary rounds, which then immediately burn everybody? Let's hope not. Talking about Soaprocks and other technicalities. The Soaprocks are an issue because there are two different physics engines working. The one from Wargaming and Havoc. And they have both different resolutions, and this leads to sometimes one object saying, oh look, we have high quality textures there, and the other's engine be like, wait, what? Yeah, this is an issue, they are working on it, and they are apparently very, very close to have a solution. Inconsistency with shooting through objects. This is not the same issue which they're having with the Soaprocks, but it's linked to the same platform. If you found something like this, like for example, you can shoot through one vehicle but not through the other, write a ticket with the location, because they really need this information. They openly called this out. Also, the bushes on Fisherman's Bay are noted and will be investigated. Again, if you find similar issues, write a ticket, they will look into it. They are saying consistency is important for the game. So why the hell do we have plus minus 25% RNG? Why the hell do we have plus minus 25% RNG on damage and penetration? Why do we have a Gaussian accuracy curve? Just saying, people like consistency. I don't know. I don't really want to go too deep into this because it's a whole can of worms I could talk about for an hour. But yeah, at least they say consistency is important. Now, to the last topic, Crew and Equipment 2.0. Crew 2.0 will be tested on Sandbox, and then it will leave the pre-production table, or to leave the pre-production table. Variation is desired, but nothing crazy like some other RPGs have. The work started already back in 2017, and Crew is obviously a very, very old feature. The biggest issue will be the conversion of Crew XP, which we have now, and the system afterwards, especially with the special crew characters like Sabaton, Santa, Offspring Crew, Skill, Death Games, all the other special crew members, the female crew members, and obviously Zero Skill crews, which have Zero Skill Bia, which for example came with the Berlin Trio, or in other tanks. Equipment 2.0, however, is separate from Crew 2.0. The current system is quite limited with only 3 slots, and there is no real variation, and this is the main issue, which makes sense. You basically always take vents, rammer, and optics, or rammer, optics, and stabilizer. Maybe vents for rammer when you are an autoloader. And this is the point of Equipment 2.0, to increase the viable options from the current standard ones, so just make it more varied. But they say first comes the equipment and then comes the crews. And that's all, folks. Thank you so much for going with me through this 35-minute long journey, or 33-minute long journey. Again, I tried to break down a 2-hour-long interview in under 40 minutes, and hey, I did it! I hope it was very interesting for you, and I hope you saw again a little bit of my personal opinion on those topics. Once again, if you have time, go and look the real one. It was very interesting, and again, I have high respect of Andrey Biletskiy to be so good in English. Like, he was very, very good, in my opinion, for a Russian native speaker. He has a good understanding of the game, but some things are still a little bit off, in my personal opinion. Most notably, the matchmaking comment and the artillery comment and the British light tank comment. Again, he's the creative director, he's not the head of balancing, and I don't even know what exactly he really does in the company. However, again, thank you so much for listening to me. If you like such breakdowns, then don't forget to hit that subscription button, because that is my jam. I did work a lot on this video. I did need it around 3.5 hours or so to just set up one PowerPoint before then, translating it to English. And now, as a little bit of information for my personal, for the people which really, really love me, my CPU came back. I now have a completely new CPU. I'm just waiting now for the motherboard. And another announcement, I bought with the money I got from YouTube, which I, saved together for 2 months or more. I did bought 2 Elgato key lights, which will be over here and over here, to give me much better light. Because right now you can sometimes see, especially during streamings, that there is a little bit of spillage. And sometimes it's a little bit very not smooth. You can even see it when I am moving my hand. With the new lights, this should be changed. Because let's be honest, my green screen at the moment is very poorly lit, as you can see it right here. Anyway, that's everything I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, have a great start into the week, and cheers guys. I talk to you all later.